Hello students, so today we'll start a new chapter, that is database concepts. This is from the unit 3, databases and SQL. So this database is totally different from your C++ programming, okay, but they are joined together, okay. So let's have a look at what is database. So first, what is data? So I've already explained to you what is data. So again, let me explain. So data is a collection of raw facts and figures such as numbers and characters. So it is a collection of raw facts, that is characters, such as like student name, stream, school, and such, and numbers such as like roll number, salary, class, right? So which contains integer numbers, decimal point numbers, like that. So anything that has to do with numbers and characters, so that is a data. So raw data is incomplete until it gets processed and becomes an information. So data is on its own, it has no meaning, it is incomplete, okay. So it is unprocessed. So once the data, related data gets collected, okay, and then it get processed, then that becomes information. So the examples are like student name, like that, roll number, class, stream, school. So all separate, all of them separately on its own, it does not make any sense. It has no meaning on its own. Student name itself, right? So next we have is what is information. So the related raw facts and figures are collected together and processed to give out useful information. Okay, so here the student name or roll number or class, stream, school, all of them are related to the student details. So separately, uh, it does not give out any details. It gives out, it does not give out any details. But if you see the table that I've drawn, in that, if you combine it, okay, if you combine the raw facts and figures, joined it, that is student name, roll number, class, stream, and school, and if you read the the details, all the details in one row, say like Pablo, the student name is Pablo, student roll number 21, class is 12, stream is science, and school is Shanghai. So now when you collect all those raw data together and combine it, it becomes an useful information. So it tells the student name, his roll number, in which class he's studying, which stream he has selected, and in which school he's studying. So this becomes a useful information. Okay, so I hope that you have understood what is data and what is information. Okay, so next we have is what is database. So database is a collection of mutually related information stored and can be accessed by various users. So a collection of such information, related information, you may have a student table which contains the student details from the science stream. You may also have student details which contains the student information from the art stream, okay, like that. And also you may have the student details class wise, separate, class 10, class 11, class 12, science streams, in the high school section, like that, right? So all of this, when it is collected together, okay, it becomes a mutually related information stored, and that can be accessed by many different types of users. So it is representation of some aspects of real world entity. So database is actually a representation of the real world uh, entity, that is like a people or a library, or say like school data, vehicle information, student information as such. So that is database. So it is built to store data that will serve a specific purpose. Okay. So database is managed by a software package which is known as DBMS, which means database management system. So examples of DBMS are like MySQL, Oracle, RDBMS, FoxPro, SciPass, etc. Okay. So using these software packages, this type of software packages, we can build a database. All right. So next is, what is database management system? In short, DBMS. So DBMS is a software which is designed to enable users to manage the database. Through this DBMS, that is through this software, keep in mind that database is a collection of such related informations as you have seen in the table like that. So using the software, users are able to access the database. It provides an efficient and convenient way for the user to access the database, to create database, to retrieve data from the database, or to store the data in the database. Okay, so using application softwares, so this DBMS is actually an application softwares. Okay, so using application softwares, uh, you can access the data stored in the database by sending requests to the DBMS. So we have different types of application softwares through which, from the DBMS, data can be retrieved or manipulated. Okay, examples of such database, we use it in the banks. Okay, so bank, it uses the database to manage the customer account details. From there, they can check out the customer account, whether the deposit, the withdrawals, the transaction that has been done. So using this database, it becomes very helpful for the bank employees to manage the customer details. Also, you can find the examples of database in railway or airlines, reservations, in different types of websites, online shoppings. So everywhere where data is stored has is related with the database management system. So whenever you're connected to the internet, anything that has to be connected to internet and managed by the data is your database management systems. So what are the advantages of database management system? The first one is, there are many advantages, but I'll just speak out on the main ones. First one is control data redundancy. So redundancy is actually duplication of the data, which means the same data or the files are copied and used in the database, which leads to the data redundancy. Okay, duplication of the files or the data, and that same copy is being reused again and again. So in a database, redundancy can never be eliminated. That redundancy can never be eliminated because redundancy must exist. Okay, because if there is no data redundancy, there is no database. But it can be reduced, and any changes in the database is updated immediately. Since DBMS or database is dynamic, okay, so any changes made in the database will be the changes will be updated immediately. Okay, so here you can see for better understanding, I have created three tables all belonging to the student, and all you can see that all the tables are same. It contains the student name, the student roll number, the class, and the stream, but the table names are different. One table is for the student fee structure. Of course, I have not included the student fee details, but just for your understanding, okay, to what is data redundancy. So one table, let's say that it belongs for the student fee structure. So when the student pays the fees, the data are maintained here. And another for the student library. So if the student to manage the student library details, another same table has been used. Again for the hostel. So if the student stays in the hostel, to keep account of the student, the hostel table is being maintained. So here what happens is that in database, any changes made to a table will affect the other two tables, hence maintaining the correct data. So in the student fee structure, if the student has paid the fees, so that particular student, suppose like Pablo, if the student has paid the fees, okay, so uh, that will be reflected in the student library or student hostel. If suppose, or more practical exam, if suppose the student name changes from Pablo to, let's say, a surname is added. Okay, suppose like Pablo Smith, right? Pablo Smith. So the that name will be reflected in the student library and in the student hostel also automatically, because it is updated in the database. Okay, so Pablo Smith will be changed. If it is changed in the student fees, it will change in the student library also, in the student hostel also. But that data redundancy cannot be eliminated, because if you remove the student name from the student library and from the student hostel, uh, and just keep the student name in the student fees table, then for the student library and for the student hostel, the table is incomplete, because for the library management and for the hostel management, the student name is required. Without that, they will not know which student, right? So uh, for that purpose, data redundancy cannot be eliminated. Data redundancy must exist, but it has to be reduced where it is not needed. Okay, so I hope that you have understood what is data redundancy. Next is the advantage is data sharing. So database user can share the data among themselves. So I hope that is you understood. Okay, sharing of the data is possible in the under the DBMS. So next is providing data security. So this is one main advantage. Only authorized users are allowed to access the database containing their confidential information. So to ensure that data security is provided, it is managed by the DPA, that is the database administrator. That will be, I'll explain in the later part, who is the database administrator and what is his job profile. So unauthorized users must not be able to access another user's confidential data. Okay. Now next is restricting unauthorized access. So only users with access privilege can access the database. That is also so restricting the user's access. So another user cannot access the uh, another user's uh, because like some access privilege or some username password is given like that. So providing backup and recovery. So if a system crashes or fails, DBMS is responsible for backing up the data and restoring the data in the database to its previous stage before the system failure occurred. Okay, so all these things are the advantages. So because of that, users need not need to back up the data. The DBMS will automatically back up the data on its own. Like example, like if you're using some suppose like in Facebook. Now you are writing down the comments. Now you don't need to save the comments, or you don't need to save the photos. If suppose your system crashes, or if suppose uh, there is some failure in the uh, internet, still then your data, the comments that you have uploaded, the picture that you have uploaded will stay, because there is backup and there is recovery option. Okay, so these are the main advantages of the DBMS. Next we have the disadvantages. So One main disadvantage is again data redundancy. So if any changes is done to the database application by different users, it might lead to inconsistent data format. Okay, so multiple duplicate files in different places may arise, which again leads to data inconsistency and data redundancy. Okay, so if suppose that particular software package has been made changes by a different programmer, so what will happen is that uh, the files may be misplaced like that, right? So what will happen is that different users may be accessing it, okay, and at the same time what will happen is that many duplicate files will be created, so which will lead to the data inconsistency and redundancy. Like here in example, so in that previous student table, that three tables were there. If any changes is done in the student fee structure, like changing the name Pablo Smith like that, so what will happen is that if the changes updation was not done properly, okay, then what will happen is that any changes done in that fee structure table will not be reflected in the other two tables, which will lead to incorrect data, which is data inconsistency. Okay, so user will not get the correct data. In that case, the hostel table and the hostel table and the library table will get incorrect data about that particular student. Okay, so that results in data inconsistency, at the same time data redundancy. Okay, next is data isolation. So data are stored in multiple files and in different formats. So writing new application programs to retrieve the appropriate data, it becomes difficult. Okay, that means making changes to the software becomes difficult. So when the software or when the database management system is created, okay, all of the changes that needs to be done must be done at the same time, because as you keep on updating the application program, it becomes more difficult to manage all the complex data that are stored in the database. Okay, so next is concurrent access anomalies. So anomalies occurs when changes made by different users in the database are not coordinated. Okay, so multiple users may access the same data at the same time, and any changes made by one user and again by another user will lead to incorrect data. So that also results in data inconsistencies. Okay, so these are some of the disadvantages. Okay, there are many advantages and many disadvantages, but these are some of the major advantage and disadvantage that you will encounter in under database management system. So that will be all for today. In the next class we'll discuss about the components of the database. Okay, so I hope that you have understood by this video. Okay, so just keep watching.